This is Rob Turbot for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted to be joined here by Anthony. Can you dig it? Yigit. We're here in London ahead of his return to action tomorrow night at York Hall. How you doing, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you very much. Just finished the weigh-in, so I'm feeling much better now.
I've just sat with you in an Italian restaurant where you had quite a sizable portion of pasta. How is it after, I've obviously never made weight, looking at me, I'm sure that's not a surprise to you. What's it like when you've actually made weight and then you can go, do you just want to eat everything? Do you have to kind of decide a little bit tricky? What's it like? Explain to me the weight making process.
Well, I mean, I'm a bit peculiar when it comes to stuff like that. Like, I have to do it in a certain way. First of all, I like to buy the groceries and bring them back home to cook them, but obviously now I'm at the hotel and it's a bit difficult to do. So went away and I had just had a basic pasta like you just mentioned, and I went to the grocery shop before to bring some stuff to the hotel room that I can, I don't know, eat while I'm here. So, but yeah, mostly. I'm just trying to get the water, the fluids down again, because I haven't been drinking. I've been sweating a lot, stuff like that, to lose the last pounds. So I'm just trying to get that back into my body and just eat slowly, not too fast. It's like an all-day process.
It's quite interesting. I mean, you're somebody throughout your career you've kind of not flitted between lightweight and super lightweight. I know you boxed at a lighter weight as an amateur. How strong do you feel at 140? I'd imagine you don't strike me as a massive 140 pounder. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not struggling making weight. So I've spoken to my promoter and my managers about moving down a weight class. It just hasn't made sense yet, because obviously I was in the World Boxing Super Series and that was at super lightweight, so there was no real reason for me to move down. And after the World Boxing Super Series, I had some good fight proposals coming in, and I think I'm handling myself quite well at super lightweight at the moment. And I'm just thinking, instead of moving down, maybe I should build myself up to become a stronger super lightweight, and that's where I am right now in between. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, but for the right now, I just want to fight and just want to see how I get on.
Okay, well, we'll come on to that later. Obviously, we saw you in the World Boxing Super Series. Unfortunate, coming up short against Ivan Barancek. We'll come on to that later. First and foremost, a question that I know a lot of people have probably asked you over the course of your career, and I'm sure people watching this introduction would have been curious. Where did the name "Can You Dig It, Yigit" come from? I think I know, but why don't you tell me?
All right, so when I started professional boxing, I didn't really have a personality or whatever, so I didn't really know what my personality would be like. Obviously, I didn't have a record, I didn't have fights, so I didn't know what kind of fighter I would be. So I was thinking like, oh, should it be like Iron Digit, no, like Iron Yigit, or like Furious Anthony Yigit or something like that. But that wasn't just me, that my personality isn't like that. And then my promoter, Nissa Sauerland, he was like, you should have it like Tony the Tiger, like from Kellogg's. But then I saw that there was another fighter that had that name, and I wanted something original. So I didn't take that. And then we had like, oh, okay, you're like a bulldog, so the bulldog. And I'm like, bro, come on, I'm not a dog, But then he came up with, "Can you dig it? That should be your nickname, because it rhymes with Yigit." And at first I didn't like it, but my coach at the time, Joey Gamache, he loved it. He was like, "Yeah, because they will scream, dig it, Yigit," And I said, "All right, let's try it out." So the first time I used it, on the announcement when I walked into the ring, that was the fight that I got a draw on. So I was like, I was very sad about that, and I didn't want to use the name anymore. But the problem was that I forgot to tell the announcer. So in the next fight, he started again. "Anthony, can you dig it, Yigit?" And while I was walking, I was like, "Yeah, I gotta remember to tell him to not use it." But I just forgot. I just forgot it. And then one day, some guys actually came up to me and said, "Oh, you're Dig It," and I was like, these guys don't know my name, but they know Yigit, so that actually it sticks, you know. So all right, let's keep it, you know. That's how it happened.
Well, there are a lot of probably questionable nicknames in boxing, and I think that's one that definitely stands out. So that's done well there. Why don't you tell me a little bit about kind of your origins in the sport? We spoke a little bit about this off camera about the fact that you're so well travelled and you're so you're a man who has you've experienced a lot of different cultures throughout your time. Why don't you give us a little bit of an insight? You're Finnish by birth, is that right?
No, I'm like my mom is half Finnish, half Turkish, and my dad is Russian. But they met in Sweden, so I'm born and raised in Sweden. So I started boxing in Sweden. I've been representing Sweden for the in the 2012 Olympics in London. So I see myself as a Swedish Turk basically, because my mom, she lives in Turkey and I speak Turkish, and I'm a Muslim and all that. So it kind of gets close to me. But with that being said, my roots are from Sweden. I'm born and raised there, and I started boxing there.
Yeah, I think I've actually just got confused in my head. It's been a very long day, and we're in a very small hotel room there. But you'll forgive me. So being Swedish, I mean, Swedish boxing is not Sweden's number one sport. I think it's fair to say. What was it like for you to to carve out a boxing career in a country like Sweden, where it's not like it is over here or in America, where boxing is a little bit more of a prominent part of sports? What was that like for you?
Well, actually, when I started boxing, before I started boxing, I started kickboxing because that's the biggest sport in Sweden. So I was like, all right, let's try kickboxing. But I didn't really like the kicking. I liked the boxing, and I've seen Rocky, so I was like, oh man, I wanna do that gentleman sport, So that's how I started it, and at the time I didn't realize how big it was or how small it was in Sweden or in other countries, because as little as I heard of boxing, I heard of, for example, skiing, because I wasn't interested in sports at all. But skiing is obviously a big sport in Sweden, and I've never heard of it, and the same was with boxing. But once I got elevated in the sport, I realized that okay, maybe I need to branch out a bit and fight in other places for people to actually recognize me as a world class fighter. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's why I'm here in London right now.
Now, we were just in between. I actually had to do a quick battery change. In between that, you came up with some very interesting things. I mean, this is, I think, part of the reason why I'm confused. Curious is probably two words about your kind of heritage. You are so multicultural. I think my colleague just said potentially the most multicultural man in all of boxing. Why don't you just explain kind of the nuances about who you are, really?
I mean, actually, to be honest with you, I've had problems trying to figure out who I was when I was younger, because, yeah, like I said, my dad, he's Russian, my mother is half Turkish, half Finnish, but you gotta remember the Turkish side of my family, they actually emigrated from, I think, Lebanon, and I think they are from like Syria or something like that. It's like in the Middle East, travels a lot, so we don't really know, but we're not originally Turkish, right? And most Turks are not. And then my Finnish side, they are from the beginning, they are actually from Sweden, because everyone that's from Finland originated from Sweden. And we are actually the first. My family is actually the ones that came up with this bad smelling fish, Swedish fish. Yeah, it's actually one of our ancestors that came up with that, because my grandmother, she did some research or something. So yeah, we got that to be proud of. And then my dad, obviously, he's Russian, and my Russian side are way back from the beginning. They're Jewish. So yeah, I'm from everywhere, mate. Like, racism doesn't work over here. So that's why I can't believe in that.
What was that like for you? I mean, I'd imagine growing up that gave you quite a well-rounded perspective of the world. Was it like that? Were there any, I don't know about difficulties, but or awkward? It's kind of different. Were there any interesting situations with you growing up with so many different facets to your DNA and your makeup?
Yeah, a little bit. I had problems figuring out who I was a bit, and I couldn't really put a label on myself like everyone else did. I had friends, they were so proud of being from Kosovo or like Yugoslavia or Greece or other countries, and like they knew the culture of it, they knew their foods of it, and they spoke the languages and stuff, while I was me, you know. I had a little bit of everything, and at the same time I didn't really have nothing, because you know, when we went to Turkey on vacation, that's what we were. We were tourists, you know. And the same when we went to Finland, or you know, at that time I have never been to Russia, so I didn't know what to expect out of Russia. And I at the time I hadn't met my father yet, so I didn't really have that Russian side in me at all. You know, that came later, and that's something that I wouldn't say that I still struggle with today, but it's difficult for me to find a platform or somewhere where I can relate. But I just right now I just feel like, all right, you know what? If people like to watch me box, for example, whoever they are, wherever they're from, they're my team. You know, that's how it is. They're my fans. So I'm not trying to relate to somewhere anymore. I'm just gonna relate to me, and everyone that likes my boxing or likes the way I speak, that likes the way I do things, they're welcome to join me. That's the idea of it right now.
Where is home for you? Where do you consider home to be?
That's a difficult question, because I can't really answer that. Because when I was, and maybe we can go into that a bit later, but obviously I got kicked out of home when I was quite like, when I was young. We moved from Sweden to Turkey, and then I moved back to live with my father, and then I stayed with him for a couple of years, and then I got kicked out, and since then I've been living a little bit everywhere. I signed with Sauerland Promotions, and I moved to Germany, and then I was in Denmark, then I was in Spain, and then I was in London. Now I'm back in Sweden during the summers, and when it gets colder in Sweden, I move to. I'm training in Las Palmas, so I'm a little bit everywhere right now, and I'm just. I would still say Sweden, like Stockholm, is my home, because that's where I grew up, and that's where I have my friends, my memories, and all that. So I would say Stockholm.
Now, you mentioned that you were kicked out of your home and you had to leave. Why was that?
Well, me and my dad, like I said, me and my dad, we didn't really know each other, and then suddenly he was gonna get this 15-year-old kid to his home, and we had to start getting to know each other, you know, and that was difficult for him and for me. He's young, you know, he's 43 years old, I think, and at that time he was even younger. And he had a 15-year-old kid to be responsible over, and I was, you know, it wasn't easy. So we were fighting a lot, and we didn't always agree on everything. And a lot of times, you know, I ran away from home, slept at friends' houses, stuff like that. And I also had boxing going on, amateur boxing, so I was away a lot anyways, like on training camps around the world, stuff like that. And when I came home, I went with my friends. So we never really bonded the way like a family should. And then one day, obviously, it wasn't one major thing that made it, but I've moved out several times. But this one time, he just told me yeah, all right, I want you to leave the house. And that's when I was like, all right, you know what, this is it. This is the last time I'm going to do it. So I actually packed my stuff. I packed a bag and I left. And that was the last time that I was there, you know. And since then, you know, obviously I turned pro and all that. And then I actually reconnected with him. And I said, listen, maybe we should get to know each other again. And maybe, you know, because you should talk to your son. And he was up for that. So we stayed in touch, and now we just know each other, you know, like there's no hard feelings between us.
That must have been difficult though at that age, particularly when you're taking up a sport such as boxing. You're travelling around a lot. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of fighters who talk about boxing being at times quite an isolating sport when you're having to travel. I know when you're with your amateurs, you're with your amateur teammates, but it's not always teammate. It can be quite competitive, if anything, at times. What was that like for you, having to travel around with with these things in the background with your father? I mean, did it make it easier for you to leave and live like the amateur lifestyle on the road? Did it make it more difficult? What was that like?
I mean, obviously now I'm highlighting all the fights that we had, but he was actually quite supportive of my sport. He's the one that introduced me to boxing to begin with, so he was quite supportive of that. And when I had to go for training camps and stuff like that, he was like, "Yeah, all right, it's time for you to go. It's time for you to do your thing," and that was quite nice. And we stayed in touch, and he supported me throughout my career, and so there wasn't anything like that. Like, it didn't feel good to leave, but it felt good to go on a training camp because I wanted to be a good fighter. And most of the times, actually, even though as an amateur we have the Swedish national team that we go on camps with, mostly I didn't do that. What I did was, I had a coach at the time, and he was pretty well connected around Eastern Europe, so he took me out on those training camps instead. So I was training with like the Ukrainian amateur team and like Moldovan amateur team, Russian and Polish, stuff like that. So I was pretty, like, people in Sweden, they didn't know of me as much. And then when I came back to Sweden, I just started competing in the in the nationals and won. So and suddenly I had to go on. I could go on these European championships and stuff like that. So that's actually how it was.
Talk to me about your Olympic experience. You went to the Olympics. A lot of people have very, very different experiences with going to the Olympics. What was yours like?
I would explain it like this. It's like a dream, because it was just so massive, and I don't think your brain can comprehend all of it. So now that I think back of it, there isn't really much that I remember, because it's like you've woken up and it was all a dream. So you remember segments of it. I remember the Olympic Village. I remember that all the food that we ate was for free, and I remember the food court was huge. One day, Usain Bolt came, and I wanted to take a picture of him, but everyone flocked him, obviously, and he was standing with his back against me. So when I took the picture, I actually never got his head. It was only his shoulders, because he was so broad. He was so big. I didn't know in person that he was that big. And small segments like this. And then obviously I remember my fights, the first fight, and when I won that fight, I was the first Swede in 16 years, and actually still to this day, to have won an Olympic fight in 16 years, now 20 years. So yeah, it was amazing. And then obviously one of the best fights in the Olympic that it's been praised as, against Denis Berinchik. That was a great fight as well. And I remember after the first round, we were battling it out. After the first round, I go back to my corner, and I'm thinking, oh man, 2 more rounds of this. Oh no, man. But went through it, and obviously, as you might know and everyone knows, I lost it with 1 point, but it was a close one. The Olympics for me was just for me to get recognized by the promoters. I wanted something bigger anyways. I needed to save myself from that everyday life, because I knew after the Olympics, if I didn't get picked up by someone, I would have to go back to Sweden to live a normal life, and I didn't want that. So after the Olympics, I actually got a lot of proposals and suddenly settled with Sauerland.
You mentioned not wanting to go back to an everyday life. You strike me as very intelligent, perfectly nice young man. You could quite conceivably fit into a lot of categories. Not necessarily, if it was the first time I ever met you and somebody told you were a fighter, I wouldn't believe it. Why didn't you want to live, quote unquote, a normal life? Not to say there's anything wrong with it, but what was wrong with it for you?
I mean, the thing is that you have to know where I'm coming from and the area where I was growing up in. Yeah, it wasn't really the best of areas, and you don't really get the opportunities that someone else would. And obviously I had friends that went that way instead, and during a period of my life I was there as well, and I just felt like, oh man, this is gonna be my life if I don't do something with it. And I just I just felt like the only way for me to save myself from all that was through boxing, because I was never particularly good at school. You know, they all, like, the teachers told me I was intelligent if I studied and stuff like that, but it's easier said than done, you know, and especially when you are from where I'm from. But I just felt that if I wanted to save myself from all that, this was the way to go, and I just put everything into it, and yeah, I'm quite happy I did.
Tell me about where you're from. I don't know where you're from. You talk about it. Explain it to me.
So I'm from a little like suburb in Stockholm called Jordbro, and that's where I'm like. That's where I grew up, like during my teenage years, and this is a place we always say that this is the place the politicians forgot about. So because it's like it takes 20 minutes for you to get into the city center with the train, and that's quite far away because there's like a lot of forest in between Stockholm and Jordbro, and you know, just the way things were there. You know, it's a lot of there's a lot of diversity there. You know, it's a lot of like immigrants coming there. They all living there, and like a lot of Turkish people. You got African people. You got like um, um, Asian people. Everyone is there, and the unemployment rate is quite high. And you know, gangs are quite, you know, there's a lot of gangs there, and if you really want to make money, and the people that have money there are the ones that deal drugs, you know, and those were the guys that we looked up to because they were driving the nicest cars, and you know, we all seen all the Western movies and stuff, and they walk around with guns and cars and all these Rolexes, and that's what we want, you know. And when we go to school and we see the nerds, they're studying hard to be something, you know, and we just laughing at them because look at them, and then look at the guys that we want to be like, you know. So everyone's like, and they're nice guys. It's not like they're bad guys. They just know how the system works, like for them obviously, and we're thinking that's how it's going to be for us as well. So we just wanted to take after them. That's actually one thing that I'm trying to change right now, is how the role models over there are. We need better role models, and I'm trying to be one. I'm trying to show people. I'm going back to my school a lot, trying to talk to the young kids and tell them, listen, there are other ways to do things, you know, don't have these guys as role models and stuff like that. And yeah, I just wanted to get away from that, and I believed I could, and I did. So it could have gone very wrong at times, but I'm happy I stuck with boxing, because my coach at the time, he was also from this neighborhood, and he was also, yeah, he has a history as well, a background as well, not a particularly good one, but he did something good with that, and he's actually helped me not get out of it, because I never got into it, but he helped me stay out of it, and that's important, I think.
Fast forward into your professional career. You've competed at a consistently high level throughout your career, European level. You've obviously boxed for a world title as well. Let's not start because it's not the start, but let's talk about it. Came up at the start of the interview, the World Boxing Super Series, Ivan Baranchyk. The lasting image that everyone's going to have is your eye, which I'm pleased to see has seemed to have healed itself. Talk to me about that fight with Ivan Baranchyk.
Well, it was my first world title fight, and that's a dream come true. You know, I'm fighting for the world title. You know, and I'm fighting at one of the most prestigious tournaments ever. You know, and it was all very honoring. You know, and I was so happy that I was a part of it. Didn't go my way, but I just like I never intended to have a perfect record. Like, but as long as I fought the big fights, you know, and as long as I did well in these fights and people remembered me, I'm happy. I'm not so much for the result. I'm more for the, you know, for how I fought, you know, stuff like that. Like, I'd rather lose a good fight than win a bad fight. You know what I mean? Like that. And I think the Baranchyk fight was a little bit like that. I'm sad what happened to my eye, but you know, if it's any consolation, people are saying that, oh, you know, if it was kept going, you could have won that one, and that actually gives me hope. I'm happy people saw it like that, because they could have much said, oh, Anthony don't belong there, but they don't. They actually think that I could have won that one, and that, like, I'm happy people think like that. It's very, I've never been much about, you know, what people think of me, except for in the ring. It's the most important thing is how the fans see me in the ring. I just want to be honest with the fans, and I want to make sure that I give them a good fight, and I want to make sure that they want to come back and watch me again. And the way I feel right now is that that's how it is, so I'm pleased with that.
And you surprised a lot of people in that fight, myself included. I've followed your career. I was actually at a fight when you boxed Joe Hughes. The fighter that boxed Joe Hughes wasn't the fight we saw against Van Barenchek. And Van Barenchek is very aggressive, very strong, big puncher. You seemed more intent to hold your feet and try and push him back. And there were times where you had great success on the front foot, as well as kind of your more kind of traditional skills, as it were. Not that the front foot isn't a skill. Was that important for you in that fight to try and do that? It did surprise a lot of people, probably surprised the Van Barenchek as well.
Yeah, I mean, my plan was actually to give him that fight that he wanted, because I didn't believe that he had the stamina to do that. I thought he was gonna punch himself out after 3 or 4 rounds, and I knew that I have the stamina to go 12 rounds. But no, he actually surprised me there, because he had stamina to go, and into the 6th round he was still fire and go, you know. So I was quite surprised by that, but I still felt, and I still believed that I could push him back, and I still believed that I could take over. But it's just yeah, I think the game plan wasn't really the game plan. I wouldn't say it was the wrong one, but I had to make sure. I have to make sure in the future that I don't get as much punishment on the way there, because that's what happened. You know, I got hit in my eye a couple of times, and so it swelled up, and that's what made it stop the fight. If that wouldn't have happened, maybe I could find another way of kind of mowing him down, so to speak, tire him out, and then finish the fight. But I don't know, but I know there's a lot for me to still learn. It's been almost a year now, and I've developed a lot, I think. And would I make this fight now? I would have made it a little bit different, not too much, but I would first of all make sure that I'd protect myself better. But I would probably go the same way. Like, I would hold my ground, you know.
I know you know Josh Taylor very well. Sparred many rounds with Josh Taylor. You obviously fought with Van Barenchek. What did you make of their fight when ultimately Josh Taylor won the IBF title?
Perfect execution of a good game plan, I think. Josh Taylor is, in my opinion, the guy to beat if you want to be the best. Yeah, I thought, and I still think to this day, that Baranchik was and is his biggest test. He's now in the finals with Regis Prograis, but I think he's going to have an easier time with him than he did with Baranchik.
Why do you think that?
Because I think Prograis and Baranchik are very similar. They're both brutes, you know. Prograis has more skills, but I don't think they will work against Taylor, because he's a taller fighter and he's going to keep on the distance, and he's going to make sure Prograis doesn't come to you know, come inside and do his work, and that's gonna make Prograis kind of reckless, and that's where we get Baranchik, and I just think Baranchik is stronger than Prograis, so I just think that Baranchik was the guy that could beat Taylor.
Now, I read something before that fight where you broke down each guy's power. I think it was on Reddit or something, or somebody had posted it there. I'm not going to spoil it for people who maybe haven't heard it, but why don't you explain the difference of being in the ring with Baranchik and Taylor, and particularly their punching power?
Yeah, so maybe not many people know, but I fought Taylor as an amateur, and I fought Baranchik, as you guys might know. And like I said, the punching power of Taylor is more like a spear penetrating you, yeah, and Baranchik is more like a cannonball hitting you. So the cannonball is easier to dodge, but if it hits, it hits. While the spear is a bit more difficult to dodge, and it really penetrates you, and it hurts. It really hurts. So yeah, that's the way I would describe it. And while fighting both of them, I still think that I would have more difficulties fighting Baranchik than Taylor, because to beat Taylor you need speed and you need skills, and I think I got that. To beat Baranchik you need to have a smarter game plan first of all, but you need to be stronger, and I didn't have that. So that's why I still think I have the tools to maybe do better against someone like Taylor than with Baranchik. But with that being said, maybe we'll see that in the future. I don't know, but we'll see.
Now, tomorrow you continue your, I don't want to call it a comeback trail, but you continue your resurgence towards kind of world honours. Another 140-pounder on the card, somebody we know very well over these shores, is O'Hara Davis. Is that a fight that potentially would interest you in the future?
Actually, we had, people have been talking about that, me versus O'Hara Davis, and, people have been asking me that as well. And I'm like, yeah, why not? I would never back down a fight, but the road I'm trying to take right now back to where I was, I don't think it goes through O'Hara Davis. That's the way I would put it. And it was the same after the Joe Hughes fight when they asked me about Taylor. I said the same thing because I just didn't believe that was the road for me to go. But also I knew that we had the World Boxing Series coming up. So I knew that if I was going to fight him, it would be in the World Boxing Super Series. And yeah, that's where I am right now. I just believe that the reason I'm fighting here against Sierra Özgül, it's his hometown, but also for me to kind of present myself to the British audience, to present myself to the world a bit more. ESPN is going to show the fight, and then take it from there. Maybe get a bigger following, and if they like the way I'm fighting, never know. Maybe I get another world title shot, and then I'm back there.
So I'm sure you're not at this point in your career looking past somebody like Sierra Özgül. I mean, we saw him go the distance with Victor Postel not too long ago. Obviously, a very accomplished fighter in his own right. All being well, and you do come through tomorrow unscathed, what's the future like for you? You seem to have been around. I don't know why this is, because you haven't, but it seems you've been around for a long time. But you're still only 28 years old. What's the future like for you? I mean, you mentioned potentially dropping down to lightweight. What is in this next part of your career?
Well, my mind is a bit everywhere right now, so I don't really know, because the first and most important thing is that my base is back in Sweden, but in Sweden we don't really have that boxing following. So I'm trying to, yeah, like I said, spread my wings and see what's out there, and that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I've been trying to do, and I think after this fight, if it goes well, it's shown on ESPN. It's going to be shown on IFL TV as well, and we'll see what the outcome of that will be. Both if I win the fight, but also what the fans think, both in America and here in the UK. If they want to see more of me, maybe I'll take on other fights here, and maybe I'll build something here. Or if the Americans want to see more of me, if I get a good fight proposal over there, maybe I should go over there. I wouldn't say I'm a journeyman, but I'm on a journey, and I'm never scared of taking fights, and I'm always the away fighter anyways. But the ring is my home, so I'm not really away, am I?
Just love to travel.
Yeah.
Just before we go, person who has joined your team, who is now part of your team, Eric Skoglund, just explain to me, if you can, the influence that he has and the impact that he has on your day-to-day, really. I mean, unfortunately for Eric, he was forced to call his boxing career short. What's it like having somebody in the team who has the kind of experiences, good and bad, that he's had in his career?
A good way to summarize it is sometimes when I'm feeling nervous of something, for example, if I'm going to have a fight or something like that, Eric's been there and he's like, why are you nervous? And I'm like, yeah, why am I nervous? That's you don't have to be nervous, that's stupid. And I'm like, yeah, it is, isn't it? And then I'm not nervous anymore. And that's the way to summarize it. He makes me calm, and he makes me calm in the ring as well, because I can be quite eager, and go in and fighting and not utilize my tools that I have. And I just think that when I have him in my corner, there is, I don't know, he has this calm vibe in him that I would like to take after, in my mind, that is. Like, I wouldn't want to fight differently. I like the way I fight, but I just need to relax a bit in my mind, and he helps me with that. So if anything, that's the influence he's had on me. And also, we've been friends for a very long time, and it just feels good to have someone familiar with you, because as you might know, as many of you might know, is that I've traveled a lot, changed trainers, changed environments and stuff, and Eric is really the only one that I have from the beginning, and it's nice to have someone that, yeah, that you've always had, so that feels good.
What was it like for you when he suffered his injury and was forced to retire? I mean, there was a period where he was very unwell and in the hospital. What was that like for you as somebody who's known him for such a long time?
Well, the crazy thing is that a guy from the newspapers called me, and it was like, yeah, what do you want to say about Eric? And I was like, I don't want to say anything about him. Like, about what? Yeah, he's in the hospital because, he's in the hospital. And I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe it's because of his back, because he had like surgery for his back a couple of years, like years back. I was like, oh, maybe it's because of his back. And this guy was like, oh, but don't you think boxing is dangerous? And I'm like, well, not more dangerous than any other sport, I guess. Like, I didn't understand what he wanted. And then I was like, all right, okay, speak to you later. And then Clara Svensson called me, and she was like, have you heard about Eric? And that's when I knew that something was wrong. And she was like, yeah, he's in the hospital for brain bleeding. And I was like, oh, shit, So I had to call this guy up again. I was like, listen, I didn't know. So don't post anything strange, So now I can give you a clearer, of what I think of the matter, So I told him that I just heard. I was shocked, and I couldn't really. Yeah, I really was. Actually, what happened was that I was scared. I was really scared for him, but also for me, because every time I got, like, if I woke up with a headache, I was like, oh shit, this can be something or not, I don't know. And then I went to Hamburg to watch, maybe it was Hamburg, to watch, what's his name, Avni Yildirim versus Junior, what's his name, Eubank Junior, yeah. And I just remember watching the undercard, and when they were punching each other, I was scared. I was like, bro, this can't be good. Like, this can't be good for your head, And it just really stuck with me, And it took me a time. Like, at this particular time, I didn't train myself because I was resting. Like, I was in the resting period. So I was like, bro, maybe this is dangerous, I don't know, like. But then when I started training again, and then I started, like, feel better about it, and I spoke with Eric's girlfriend Angelica, and, like, she was very, very sad, very scared. But then thankfully Eric woke up, and the first thing I did was I called Angelica, and I was like, how is he? And she said, yeah, but he's well. And then I hadn't heard from him, so I went with Michaela Lauren. We called Angelica and said, listen, we're coming over. We want to see how it is. So we drove there, and we didn't know what to expect. And when we came there, Eric was actually waiting for us at the door. And he's like, hello! And I was like, bro, I haven't spoken with you for like half a year. Like, what happened to you? And he's like, oh, no, I've just been here. Like, I was like, man, come on, man, I've been so worried. And he's like, yeah, but I just needed to be by myself, and so I could really understand that. But he was fine. He was fine. I was very, very happy with that. And since then, he's been to Las Palmas with me, training with me. We've been sparring as well, So, he can still punch, So he's just a bit fat now, but he can still punch. But that was good. He was with me for 2 weeks and training, and I'm training. This was during the period where I was building some muscles and stuff, so we're training pretty hard. First boxing, and then in the gym. So one session could be between 2.5 hours, and I was training twice a day. So we had like 5 hours training every day, and he was actually going with me. He was actually doing it with me, and I was in shape. He wasn't, but he was still doing it with me, and that just tells you that he never lost that fighting mentality, that fighting spirit, and he still has it to this day. So I'm not scared anymore. Yeah, and what happened happened, but I just believe that whatever's gonna happen in the future, he only has brightness in front of him. Yeah, only a bright future in front of him.
Okay, I think that's very well said. I had a bunch of things that I wanted to ask you around that, but I think you've managed to sum it all up quite nicely there. Well, this has been fun. Anthony Yigit, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Real pleasure catching up with you. Look forward to you returning to the ring tomorrow night. Yeah, thank you very much. Anthony, can you dig it, Yigit?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for following me and watching me. If anything, follow me on Instagram, Yigit. And yeah, watch me tomorrow on IFL TV or on ESPN if you're from the States.
Thank you very much.
Okay.